Welcome back, everyone, to the Disgustingly Easy podcast. I'm your host, Beck Cameron, founder of The Long Game, our training and lifestyle program for neurodivergent millennial women who are done with diet culture, burnout, and trying to contort themselves into systems and shapes that were never built for them. And I need you to know, whilst I love all of the guests that we've had on the pod, today's conversation feels really fucking special because today I'm sitting down with a longtime love of my life, Amie McNee. Now, if you somehow don't already know Amie, she's an author, artist, speaker, creative coach, best known for her work over on the Inspired to Write Instagram, where her community is now 500,000 deep. 500,000. She's cultivated a space there that has become a steady source of permission, clarity, courage, and nervous system safety for creatives all over the world. She's also the founder of the Inspired Collective, which is an online creative community built around devotion, consistency, and the seemingly radical belief that your art is worth taking seriously. In April last year, you might have seen Amie deliver a powerful TED Talk where she named what we were all feeling, which is the fact that the world is on fire, figuratively, literally, emotionally, and existentially. And in the middle of all that chaos, she stood on that stage and she told us to make art anyway. Most recently, many of you might have heard Amie speaking with Jay Shetty on his On Purpose podcast about her new book, We Need Your Art, where she shares the simple, almost radical truth behind how her books were actually written. Not through suffering, not through pressure, not through creative martyrdom, but through consistency. Dare I say, disgustingly easy consistency. But behind the platforms, the podcasts, the stages of all sizes, to me, Amie is also my friend of the last 7 years, and she's walked alongside me through some of the darker chapters of my life, a constant source of creative permission, someone who has believed in me quietly and consistently and cheered me on from the sidelines in every fucking endeavor my multi-passionate heart embarked upon, holding space for me and reminding me who I was when I forgot. She's an extraordinary business owner. She's the breadwinner for her family, building a deeply intentional, creative life alongside her husband, James, and living proof that success does not require self-abandonment. And today, we're talking to an even lesser known fact. She also has a serious physical practice. Amie is, in my opinion, a CrossFit athlete. We're talking 10 strict pull-ups. She lifts, she squats, she jerks, she trains. This is a woman who understands that the body is not separate from creation, but the thing that carries it. So today we're talking about what success looks like when you refuse to fragment yourself, when creativity, strategy, business, discipline, and the physical body all belong in the same life, when we stop choosing either or and start choosing all of it. Amie, my dear friend, welcome to the pod.
That is by far my most favorite introduction anyone has ever done of me, ever.
Take that,
I feel
Jay Shetty.
very, Jay, please, up your game. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. I love you and I'm honored to be here. And I know that this is going to be like one of the best conversations ever because we always have the best conversations and I just can't wait to see what happens.
I agree. I wanted to start with where I imagine no other podcast has ever been able to start with and talk about how we met in 2019. Do you remember the circumstances around that?
Like physically or when I first reached out to you?
When you first reached out to me.
I am a Beck Cameron fan first, I'll have you know. Like I'm a Beck Cameron fan before Beck Cameron was an Amie fan. And I'd been following your work, your writings and who it was you were and how vulnerable you were with your sharings for it must have been a few years. And I reached out to you. I think I was on a walk. Did I send you a voice note? Did voice notes even exist? I don't think so. I must have typed it out. I must have typed it out and just said, I'm just in awe of your journey and I'm very grateful for your transparency and the vulnerability and your art, essentially. And I mean, this is how I remember it. And I was like, I don't know. I think that's what I left it at.
Yeah, you slid into my DMs and I couldn't believe that someone who, I mean, at the time, all I knew was what I could see on Instagram, which was like, this person has 35,000 followers. What the fuck is she doing thinking I'm interesting? But this and the permission that you gave me and you give so many other artists and creatives. And I challenge everyone listening, if you are listening to this podcast, hearing it, starting out thinking, well, I'm not an artist or a creative, so this isn't for me. I want you to broaden your perspective of what art and creativity can mean, because we're not just talking, paint on a canvas. We're talking the capacity to create our lives and be the artistic director of our lives. And for me, what I saw you doing gave me such a huge sense of permission. And, this was back in the days when you were just starting your journaling practice, which is now like 2,000 days plus deep. And you had the journaling compendium. And I went through this really hard time at the end of 2019 when I came back from Canada, and I had this whole new identity of who I was. I'd had what some people have heard me speak about, my life intermission, where I just fucked off to Canada for 5 months, told my husband I'll be back soon. And when I came back, I had a completely different identity, and I really struggled to integrate that with my life. I went off for a few months by myself, staying in various places, various friends, and the journaling compendium came out at the same time. And this was the start of probably a year of consistent journaling for me. But there was a part of that process, which was the mothering yourself, which I speak to a lot of clients about now, which radically shifted not just my journaling practice, whilst it taught me to do that on the page, it started to slowly become a part of my internal practice. And it's something that I still keep to today, and something that has really informed how I coach, because in the end, I think I say to clients every single day, we can't hate ourselves into being better, and nothing good ever came from telling yourself that you're a piece of shit. So can you explain to us a little bit about the process of mothering yourself, how you came to that and its influence on you and your work?
Yeah, I would love to. One of my favorite things in the whole world to talk about. I just want to add that, like, it's so beautiful. Like, I feel like I reached out to you at the beginning of a lot of creative change in my life, where I was really starting to take up space, and I was about to release my first ever book, The Journaling Compendium. And it was just, you've watched and witnessed me, and I've watched and witnessed you through some like pretty epic portals of change. And it's so, I'm so grateful. So my book, The Journaling Compendium, came out, I just did it myself. I self-published it, and I felt very like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I didn't get permission, but I was like, I have this journaling practice and I want to share it with other people because it has changed my life. And the biggest part is the mothering practice of my journaling, which is this voice that I found on the pages of my journal. And it often turned up at the very end of my journaling. When I initially started journaling on April 16th, 2018, I found a voice on the pages who was vitriolic and who was incredibly cruel. I had a very, very deeply mean inner critic. And I had a lot of stories about how I was a piece of shit and how I was lazy. And, a lot of this came from what I see and reflect back now is I had a neurodiverse brain. I did not understand that. And she did not fit into the world. And so I was very angry at who I was because I was so different. But this internal dialogue was very cruel. And I thought that was all of who I was until I found this voice, and she would suddenly just appear at the end of my journaling pages, and she would say, oh, baby, I love you so much. And I am so fucking proud of you. And you are absolutely going through it right now. But you are needed and you are important. And I need you to stay the course. And she had this incredibly compassionate, mothering, gentle voice. Mothering is not always the word for all of us, because I know a lot of us have very difficult relationships with our mothers. But for me, it was that maternal voice, that it was compassion. And I just was curious about this voice, and I let her grow, and I let her take up more and more spaces on the page. And the more I let her take up space on the page, the more I saw her like during my day. And whilst I still had this like quite strong inner critic, there was another voice to kind of combat it, or to at least take care of me after I had been battered by this voice. And I still have this voice on pages today. I'm just looking at my journal now. I'm sure she popped up on the pages today. It is kindness and gentleness. She gives me permission. She lets me off the hook. She tells me to just stop fucking pushing. You're doing so well. And I used to think that a voice like this would mean I was, I would fall behind, or that I would let myself, have too many excuses. But it was only when I found this incredibly compassionate voice and I integrated her into my life that I started seeing incredible success. And there is a gentleness and a compassion that is required if you want to build a beautiful and successful and abundant life. And you cannot get there by beating yourself up. And you cannot get there through cruelty.
You cannot. Do you feel like you see, because obviously you work with a lot of creatives and people reach out to you with your coaching and your mentorship and your speaking, do you feel like you see people who can reach those heights of success, but without that kindness, without that element of that self-trust and that self-validation, it's not sustainable?
Yeah, and it's also not fun. They're having a fucking terrible time. So if you want to get to the heights of success, and for me, I'm an author. So let's say I want my successes, and everyone has different versions of success, but let's just say I'm working with an author and their success is I need to be a #1 New York Times bestseller. I need to make $1 million. And you could probably bully your way to it, but you're not going to like it. And so for me, success, I'm very ambitious. Like I want success to also be, big goals and big dreams, but I'm assuming also you want to be delighting in it and you also want to be enjoying in it. So if you want that kind of success where you get to achieve your dreams and love it, then yeah, you have to be fucking compassionate to yourself. Because I do see a lot of people can look successful and they're very unhappy and therefore they are not successful.
Yeah, it depends on how we quantify or qualify the success or what we think success means. Do you think that we have narratives that exist right now, which I see as more like the patriarchal work hard, play hard, very bro type version of success, which is like you slog it out, you go hard, you don't enjoy the process, you just do. And that's what a lot of people are leading with. They don't actually understand that success, or we don't contextualize success in the concept of pleasure and ecstasy and joy and things like that.
And I think a lot of us think we're doing it wrong when we're having a lot of fun or when it's easy. Or
when it's easy.
When it's easy, exactly. I'm in the best physical shape I've ever been in my life at the moment. And I was with a friend yesterday and she was like, how did you do it? And I was like, it was really easy. And it was just like really like just a consistent, easeful practice that I've now had for 3 years and nothing extreme happened. And similarly, with my writing career, it has been incredibly joyful. Of course, there's been really hard moments and moments of rejection and moments where I've been very creatively frustrated of course, but it's also been incredibly easeful and incredibly joyful. And I think we've been told the story that if it is too easy, then you're doing something wrong and you don't deserve it, because we live in a culture of you'll only deserve it if you suffered for it. And that's a culture that I don't want to be a part of, and I want to build something different. I don't believe we need to buy our happiness with pain. I don't believe we need to buy our success with flogging it.
And in the end, that doesn't lead us to get anywhere that we actually want to be, which is why people end up being successful and then burning it to the ground. I had a podcast at the end of last year where I talked about how last year I stuck at one thing and I did one thing for 1 year, which was the long game, and how it changed the trajectory of my life. It was incredibly successful. It's still incredibly successful. My husband no longer has to work and he can be more a part of our family and focus on things that light him up, like currently ceramics is what he's into. And we're about to move house. He's going to renovate. And none of this would have been possible had I chosen the path of most resistance, instead choosing the one thing for 1 year and just letting it be as easy as fucking possible. But the other thing that went alongside of that, like what you've said, was my physical practice, which last year was probably the first time it's ever clicked for me that you cannot build a business on top of a body that isn't strong enough to sustain it. So how has your physical practice evolved with your business?
No one ever, I never get to talk about this because nobody ever thinks the two are linked. And it is so annoying. And I'm just so fucking delighted to have this conversation with you. And I think it is like, you are a torchbearer in this space. And I think it is a hugely missed part of the conversation. People just don't want to hear it. And we want to keep the mental and the creative or the business like completely separate to the literal bodies that we use to do the thing. And so for me, I have had a practice of strength and strengthening my body since I was maybe 25. I'm 33 now. And the stronger I am and the more I nourish this body, the better I am as an artist, as a writer, and as a person. And the two are so inextricably linked. And I am so fatigued of speaking to creatives who are devoted to the idea that they are brains in a jar and that's all they need to do. That's all they need to take care of, their brains and ideas, because they are creatives or they are business owners, and that's all that counts. I mean, we are so interconnected, and my gut health has absolutely everything to do with my creative health, and my muscle mass has absolutely everything to do with, how I feel and how I create in the moment. And I like and need us to start conversing about how they connect. And so I have gotten stronger and stronger over, and in the same, we'll look at my business and, obviously it's not on an upward trajectory all the time. There's loads of ups and downs, but essentially if you really zoomed out, my life and a career as an author, it goes upwards and my muscle mass goes upwards. And, again, there's always blips, there are times where I just don't have it. Consistency is, how you want to define it. And, there's always going to be ups and downs, but it's been so inextricably linked.
What do you think would have happened to your business had you not had this simultaneous acceleration of your physical practice, or this simultaneous growth in your physical practice? If you didn't have that, how would your business be different?
It's such a good question, and I've never even thought about that. I know that I was an incredibly inactive kid, and I didn't have a sport. Like I would try and walk when we had to do cross country during PE. I hated moving my body. And I hated moving my body until I was 23 years old, when I decided I would run a half marathon.
As we do as neurodivergent millennial women.
Massive goal. I have to have a massive
Dopamine.
goal. Woo! And I couldn't run around the field. I couldn't run a 400-meter track. I would just get so out of breath. I was like, let me give this a go. And every single part of my personality was anti-movement. Everyone knew me as the chick who just didn't move. She didn't like to move. She liked to write. She's creative. She was good at English. She was imaginative. She wanted to read. She didn't want to play any games. I fucking hate games. To this day, I hate games. And I just naturally was very still. Anyway, I decided for the 100th time, I'm sure I said I wanted to run a half marathon before, but this time for some reason it stuck. And I ran a half marathon, and it took me, I don't know, it was a slow, luxurious half marathon of nothing special, 2 hours 30 or something. And then when I drove home, I bawled my fucking eyes out, because it was the first time in my life that I had done something that was so entirely un-Amie. And it meant that I could do anything.
And this is what our physical practice does.
Yeah, it meant I could do anything, because I wasn't a runner, and now I am, which meant that anything I am not now, I could be. And it was just a glass shattering moment for me, because I realized I could do anything, because that was something that I legitimately thought was not possible for me. And when you do something that you legitimately think is not possible, a whole world opens. And so bizarrely, I think almost that moment there allowed my business and my creativity, and for me to just start doing things that I had thought were impossible. And again and again and again, I have done that through my physical practice, lifting this much, doing this, just testing my body and proving to myself that if I want something, I can do it. And it's very tangible within the gym in a way that I think serves me, because I'm in a very intangible field of the creative arts, which is so subjective. And, someone might love my book and someone else might hate it. And that's kind of the magic and also the pain of being an artist. But if I want to bench press 50 kilos, then I can work to that. And just allowing myself to have that very tangible, very objective goal has kept me reminding myself of how capable I am.
Yeah, and being able to see yourself do something that you've never imagined. It's almost like, I imagine it like switching on a light in a room that you never knew existed, and suddenly there's all these things, and there's so much to explore. So you get to play with them, you get to look at them, and that's one of the reasons. I mean, I know not everyone is going to go out and do martial arts, but it's one of the reasons I love that, is because there is endless learning, endless getting better, multiple different contexts or multiple different interpretations of the same move. And I've been talking a lot to the team about how I have mastered a kick recently, and I started when I was 7. So to now say I'm about to turn 37 and a kick that never felt right now feels right. And then we have people coming along saying it's not working fast enough, it's not happening fast enough. I'm like, sometimes it will happen next year. Sometimes it will happen next month. Sometimes it might take 30 years. But in the end, life is for this constant evolution, this constant exploration. And I think coming home from karate last night, I just couldn't get out of my head how much women hold themselves back from fear of looking silly, from fear of the unknown, women not wanting to step into the gym because they tell me they think the environment is intimidating.
Mm,
And I just, on the one hand, I can hold that fear, but
mm.
on the other hand, it's like we get one fucking go at it that we know of, one fucking go. And, I feel like I'm looking down the barrel of 40 in the next couple of years, just really proud of myself for how much of a fucking go I've had, especially in the last maybe 5 years or even since Odie was born. But there is so much fear of perception, of failure. And what is it about, I don't know, the way we're being brought up, maybe millennial women especially, but what is it that leads us to be so afraid of the unknown?
There's so many answers to this question, and it's so interesting. I love really quickly, can I just come back to something you were talking about, the martial arts? Because I feel like I
Yeah.
want to put a pin in that question, but I was coming up with a few things as you were saying that. What my physical practice has done for me as a business owner and as a creative has reminded me that it's all just a process, which is exactly what
Mm.
you're saying. And that I
Mm-hmm.
think we can get very goal oriented, just as I was saying,
Mm-hmm.
like I want to, be wrapping out 50Ks on the bench press this year. I do, but
Yeah.
I will then continue to bench press.
Yeah.
And it's always about the process. And I go to the gym and it's
Mm-hmm.
about what I do on that day. And just as when I write the book, it's not about the book deal. It's about what I'm writing in
Mm-hmm.
that day. And it's process oriented. And
Mm-hmm.
it's taught me so much about it's about what we do today. And then it will be
Yeah.
about what you do tomorrow. And then maybe eventually something exciting might happen. But essentially it's about the process.
And women aren't taught that.
Yeah.
We get the goal or we have this outcome in mind, and something that what I teach is like the process becomes the goal. I want the process to be the goal, and then your outcome or the thing that you're actually striving for becomes an inevitable byproduct of the process.
Exactly.
And if we can understand that and realize that it's not ticking off the scale drop or it's not ticking off the weight lifted, it's ticking off, I went 3 times this week. I attended. I ate the thing I said I was going to
Mm.
eat. I followed through with the thing I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
Ticking off those things every single week is the thing that gets the goal. And
Yeah.
striving for something is striving for the process. That's how we
Yeah.
become successful. And
Yeah.
same thing, writing books. You've spoken about on multiple podcasts, and I've heard you talk about this for literally years, how you write your books 300 words at a time. And
Mm.
I have something I teach called the Disgustingly Easy process. The podcast is called Disgustingly Easy because all of my philosophy comes down to this idea that you can do fucking anything. And I think any woman can strive for any goal. And I want to support women to do that. However, we need to start with it being disgustingly easy. And by that, I mean tangible. I want it to be so easy that you laugh at how ridiculously simple it is. And I want it to be so easy that your adherence is 100%. You build
Exactly.
confidence, you build self-trust, you become the person who does what she says she's going to do. And when you do that, then disgustingly easy becomes relative, because what was easy for me 10 years ago is now, I don't even think about that. Now it's relative to the life I'm living here. So how did that process of the 300 words, like
Mm.
what had to happen for you to develop?
I had to keep asking myself to do too much and fail. And I had to break my relationship with myself because I was constantly asking for way too much and never being able to follow through. And I had to be in a relationship with myself where I didn't trust anything I said because I never followed through. And I had to realize that it was so fucking damaging. And I had to put my ego to the side and say, well, do you want to actually be able to believe what you have to say? Do you want to be a writer, Amie? Because every time you promise 3,000 words and don't do it and you hate yourself, or you even do the 3,000 words and then you're so exhausted that you're not writing for weeks, like you're ruining your relationship to yourself and you're ruining your relationship to your art. And so I was like, well, what if the goal was so easy that even at the end of the worst fucking day ever, I could still smash something out? And so, yeah, it was 300 to 500 words a day. And it wasn't every day. It was like 4 to 5 days a week. And they had to be shit words. And I just made it doable because we pedestal these things, getting fit or writing a book. Like it's got to be so hard. And it doesn't. It literally doesn't. I think it's a lie we've been told. And what if it could be really easy? And we don't want easy for some fucking reason. We're like,
We don't deserve
no.
it.
I think, it doesn't give as much of a bigger dopamine hit as well. Like, I'm going to do this, like I'm going to do a half marathon. Well, if you're going to do a half marathon, Amie, you're going to have to run like 10 to 15 minutes initially for a few days. And then, maybe you can grow. And that's just not sexy, but it
No.
is the way incredible things get done. And so I still write, small amounts regularly. And that's how I write huge books all the time. And I similarly, I still do 3 workouts at 3 weightlifting workouts a week, and they're 30 to 40 minutes, and it's so I'm just pulling shit, it's not that hard. I'm not going to
it's not that deep.
It's just not that deep. I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm pulling some cables, I don't know, then I leave, and it's just not as that hard. And I've given myself a life that is incredibly beautiful, and also not a fucking fight.
Yeah. Not a fucking fight. But I think so much of that, it comes from understanding that I think it is that it's not that deep. It's not that deep. It's not that scary. We have so much internal resistance to anything that's new, or there's just so many cultural narratives around the complexity of health and fitness, or the complexity of business, when if you actually just broke it down, for so many of us, it's post regularly on social media about the thing that we really give a shit about, that we could talk endlessly about. Just do that, just talk to your people and forget about whether or not they're going to criticize you or whether they're going to come for you, because if they do, then they're not your people. Going to the gym, if someone thinks that you look fat, I don't validate any of the fears around oh, nobody's going to be thinking that about you. Fuck, they might.
Maybe, yeah.
So you need to be able to sustain your practice regardless of what other people think.
You brought it back beautifully to this question we put a pin on, which is why are we so afraid of this? I think you're right. To try, we live in a culture where trying is deeply embarrassing for some fucking reason. And yet we must try in order to live beautiful and interesting and healthy and fulfilled lives. But trying is cringe. And I hate that we have this. And, I did my degree in history, and we had this, it's cultural, it's really old, this idea. There's this Renaissance idea of sprezzatura, I think it was called. And it's this idea of effortlessly trying. And all the courtiers, you had to be incredibly, well educated, and you had to be an incredible artist, but you had to look like you never tried to get there. And we still have that culture today. We've inherited this culture of sprezzatura, which is be fucking excellent and never let anyone see you get to the excellence. But it's impossible. And to be excellent, you have to be so embarrassing. You have to be bad. You have to make huge amounts of mistakes. And I want to see our culture leaning more into that and allowing the vulnerability of I'm trying something new, or I'm going to the gym and I don't really get what this machine does. So I'm going to sit here and put my arm on it and try it this way, or just go ask someone, what the hell is this machine?
Just go ask someone. I have to remind people all the time that literally the staff at the gym are there for that purpose. You could just go up to them and be like, what does this do? How do I do it? Show me.
Because I've just moved back to Sydney and I'm at a new gym, had a new machine. I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm I cannot figure out where the ass is meant to go, where the arms, is it an ass machine? What is going on? And, I just was hey, what the hell is this? And they were like, yeah, it's a weird one. And just allowing ourselves to be seen in those moments. And I think the more we do it, the more comfortable we become. And also, this is not just about you. When we do those kind of things, it's incredibly generous. When we allow ourselves to be seen and to be seen trying, holy shit, what a generous thing you can do in all aspects of your life. To be seen trying is one of the most generous things you can do with your life. It is something that heals our world. And so I don't believe in trying privately. I want us to try publicly. I want us to be seen at the gym being unfair. I want us to, share our shitty, run times. My sister, she's really got a terrible relationship with Strava. And I'm just post your shitty run times, you little shit. And embrace it. She's married to a very, very fast runner, and she just has this who cares? Let's witness each other trying and realize how fucking human and beautiful that is.
I think it's that humanness that is missing in, I feel like social media is coming back around. We had a time where Instagram especially was very curated and very it had to be very aesthetic. And I feel like we're coming around the other side of that, being we didn't really like that. We didn't really connect to it. And I know you have had a very fun relationship with your Instagram grid. And there'd been times when you had a very nice, very consistent aesthetic, and having to break up from that, I'm sure, breaks your brain. just slightly.
Yeah. Let us be messy publicly.
But
yeah.
because that is the human side of it. Because
Yeah.
without that, we are, I think, just striving for or aiming for, it's not connection, whatever it is. Like when you're striving for and aiming for what someone else has got and they're demonstrating or performing perfectionism or performing perfection, what we're getting from that isn't connection. It's more to do with approval or more to do with, I don't know, performance.
Yeah.
Especially for
Aspiration.
neurodivergence,
Yeah.
aspiration.
Yeah, I
Just
agree.
that idea of like fitting in via performance.
Yeah. And I often wonder what people are trying to prove when I see a lot of this. And I think sometimes, like, when I post my TED Talk, I'm really fucking proud of my TED Talk,
Fuck
and,
yeah.
and we're allowed to share, like, our really good run times, or like, you've lifted a heavy weight and you want to share it, like share your wins. But do it because you're fucking proud of yourself and you want to be seen in that, not because you need to tell someone that, not because you need to tell someone that you are effortlessly excellent, not that you want to prove something, And I think it's just understanding where it comes from. It's interesting that you said you feel like social media is coming around. I agree. But I also wonder, and I'm worried, I was on my friend's Instagram the other day and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? And I worry that, the algorithms have become a lot more individual, and we are not people we do not have an appetite for performance. We have an appetite for real humanness. And so we have different feeds. I was on my friend's feed and I was like, this is alarming. So it's still definitely out there. We still need to be very careful about the content we're consuming.
That's all about taking responsibility for the environments that you put yourself in, because a
Yeah.
lot of women that I speak to tell me the exact same thing. Like when we're talking about skinny talk coming back, or I curate my Instagram to what I want to see, but I'm very intentional with my TikTok use, and the way I use it is inputting things or searching for things that I think my clients search for, so that I get the feedback or I get the algorithm that they're likely to see. And it's frightening when it
Scary.
comes to like GLP-1s and just the ultra thin culture, and not wanting to, I don't want to name names when we're starting to think about like the way this is being influenced or seen throughout Hollywood, but it's very stark and it feels very reminiscent of like the Tumblr era.
Yeah.
But when I think about it in the context of neurodivergence, it's like for me, skinny was always seeking to fit in. And I had an eating disorder for like a decade, and I was striving to be endlessly thin. There was no real number or anything I was aiming for. It was just like thinner than I am today.
Yeah.
And for me, as a neurodivergent person, I knew I got complimented, I got positive feedback, and I got positive attention when I fit a certain aesthetic. And to even broaden that out, it's like when we do fit that perfection, or we do meet some kind of aesthetic, whether it's like not physical, whether it's to do with our business or our activities, what we're doing, and we get that feedback, it can be almost addictive, and you want to show up in that performance and you want to pretend you're this person. But this isn't connection. It's not real connection, and it's unsustainable. Have there been times in your life where you've gotten, I guess, praise for showing up in ways that felt inauthentic to you, and how that feels almost like, well, do I continue down this path if it gets me the positive
Yeah.
feedback?
I mean, it happens a huge amount with artists, and we see, first of all, very similar journey with you. Like I had eating disorder issues, and all I wanted to do was be skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. Again, skinnier than today. Yeah. Again, I had no, I wasn't weighing myself, but I just knew I needed to be smaller. I had a very small upper body and a very thick lower body, and I just felt so embarrassed, and I would never wear really baggy pants, and I would never be in a bikini. I would always wear board shorts. Like I was very embarrassed and just wished to be smaller and smaller and smaller. And now again, to be trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger is the fucking most rewarding thing. I cannot. I want bigger arms. I want bigger back. I love my huge.
I want bigger arms than you. We can strive for bigger arms than
some
each other.
Shoulder boulders.
Like
that's what I'm really working on this year.
Yeah, I'm working on an Amie ass.
To feel like, just to tell other women is my favorite thing. I'm trying to get bigger. because it is so rebellious, and there's that streak in me that just wants to fuck up the narrative of getting smaller. But yeah, it's happened to me in so many different aspects of my life, but specifically creatively, as if I do something or make a piece of art that people like, or, share something that people like, especially online, the algorithm gives you a huge swarm of dopamine. I'm like, I should recreate that because that's what gave me the most reward. It's very, it's Pavlovian. Like, it's very like we want to replicate. And we're seeing this thing it's being called like the flattening of culture, because what is being rewarded by the algorithm is the same. And so everyone is trying to appease the same algorithm, which means we are seeing the same aesthetics, the same tone of voice, the same looks. And culture is literally flatlining because we're all trying to adhere to an algorithm that preferences certain images, certain voices, certain ways of speaking. And so it's more important to me than ever, especially as a creative person, to notice that and then to lean heavily into what actually makes me me and what makes me different, because we are no longer being surprised. We are no longer seeing the fringes, and we want to make sure that weird stuff and unusual things are still being made and shared. But it's very difficult when we're navigating an algorithm that only rewards a certain thing. And especially if you're trying to run a fucking business.
Right. What you're saying is almost like feeling as though we have to choose between living in alignment with your values and being the rebel that feels so important and culturally important, and being able to run a fucking business, have a life, sustain your life, do the things that you want to do and not have to get a fucking 9 to 5. How do you feel like you've broken through? Because you have a business, you have a sustainable business, you're traveling, you are working with James in your business. How do you feel like you've maintained your individuality? Or is there a level at which you kind of break through enough that you don't have to do that acceptable presentation?
Something that I am deeply, deeply grateful for my neurodivergent brain about. That was a terribly constructed sentence. I am very grateful for my ADHD brain because I am driven only by what interests me. I cannot do work that does not interest me. So I feel very blessed. Like, I feel that I have this almost like stopgap inbuilt, like mechanically inbuilt within me, that means that I can't go too far down the line of doing something that isn't who I am, because I have an incapability of doing something that isn't who I am, because I am so interest driven, so curiosity driven, and I have a brain that doesn't allow me to do things I'm not interested in. And so when I see ADHD creators, I get very excited for us, because we are like the opposite of the flattening in this way, because we can't be beige unless we are naturally beige, and in which case, go for gold, girly. But I feel like it's just an interesting thing that has allowed me to make sure I stay on track. And initially it was so distraught, like I was distraught at this brain that allowed me to do what everyone else was meant to do. And I realized that an interest-based nervous system has been the greatest blessing of my life.
I think that's one of the things, especially for neurodivergent creatives, helps us push past the fear, because in the end, the thing that terrifies me more than anything is having to do what I don't want to do. And it's been a constant source of friction in my life and my relationship, and the idea that I would be in a job, my last social work job, or my last office-based social work job, I hit a point where I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And once that click happens, I quit. And my poor partner, who just, I think that was the last time I was ever fully employed, which was 10 years ago this year. And he was like, couldn't you just look for another job and quit when you got the other job? And I was like, no, I felt it. And then I took the action, and now I am unemployed, and I know we have a mortgage.
We'll just figure it out.
But we'll work it out. And that's that endless sense of, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have this mantra in my head of every time it's just like, I don't know how to do this, but I've worked out things before, and I will work this out eventually. And that is
it's
how
a beautiful
I live my life.
Trust of self. And it comes through evidence, I think, and that kind of trust needs to be built. And to build it, you have to come face to face with things you don't know how to do. And so you can't avoid hard things in order to build that trust. But I completely agree. And I'm able to be so brave because I know I will figure it out. And I will come face to face with really big problems. And sometimes I will absolutely think maybe this is the problem I can't face. Eventually I will figure it out. And, it might not be ideal, but like, I know that I can face really hard moments and navigate them safely. And I think it's the most incredible form of self-trust, and it allows us to do really brave and brilliant things. And it's why you are as successful and magical as you are. And I love that you have that self-trust.
It's taken a long time to develop. And I think last year was the point. Last year, 2024, I got my diagnosis. Very similar time, was still parenting 24/7, was breastfeeding 2.5 years in, and was starting to have heart palpitations and really serious physical burnout symptoms. And I did hit a point when we moved where I just thought, I had this like sinking feeling of like, holy fuck, I had this trust and this idea that like one day I'm going to make it work with having it on my business. And at mid 2024, I hit that point of like, what if I've been wrong this whole time? And I think I fell in a hole for about a month, felt really, really depressed, and felt like, just like, what a fucking idiot that you thought this was going to work and it hasn't worked, and it's 10 years. And like, what are you doing? You have a family, you have a child, you need to, like, a lot of the stuff you've spoken about, like, this is immature, this is selfish, this is irresponsible. Why can't you just grow the fuck up? And I feel like I faced, in that very darkness, faced this like two choices of, I either admit that everything I've been doing in the last 10 years has been in vain and that you're a silly, immature wannabe, or I double down and go, I am unyielding forever. And it will be, that's it, forever. I am on this path of like doing my own thing. I will take my time. I will be in charge of my time. I am the agent of my time. That moment was quite frightening. And this idea of like, has all of that gusto and all of that confidence been in vain? Do you feel like you've ever hit?
Yeah.
Have you ever had any of these like dark night of the
Oh
soul
my
moments?
God. I've had so many. And when you have, dreams like what me and Beck have had, like to be a writer, to own your own business, to be in charge of your own schedule, these are really countercultural, and they're not what society offers us, really. And when we dare to ask the world for lives that we want, we will have moments where we think, holy fucking shit, I fucked this up. This is not possible. I have thought that the life I have today is not possible for so many moments, and really dark moments, because I didn't know how I was going to survive if I wasn't able to create full time. If I was going to have to go and do a job I didn't like, I really didn't know that I was going to be able to move through that. There have been moments of like deep hopelessness, and I've had to choose again and again. Well, I have to fight for a life that I want. I have to fight for myself. And I love this word. Did you say relentless? Or what did you say you would be? What was the word you just used?
And was it endlessly relentless? I don't know. I
Oh,
can't
it was
remember. I
fucking
have to go
magical.
back.
Shit. Anyway, I
We'll
have
go
this,
back and find it.
I look at you, Beck, and I know that you are like inevitable. Like, it's inevitable. And I had this, again, it was like almost that like mothering voice. Like, I would be in the fucking shittest place. You should see. I mean, I have all my journals. They are dark. And I really, really didn't think, because everyone told me what you are asking for is impossible. My greatest heroes told me what you're asking for, nobody gets. I was being repeatedly told. And then this voice would be like, well, I think that you are inevitable. And I know that you are relentless. And I just kept going. And I'm so grateful for every time I navigated one of those dark, dark times. And often it wasn't a dark fucking night. It was like, months of me really struggling to believe in myself. But I know again and again and again, I chose to ask for more. I see that in you. And I've always seen that in you, Beck. Like, there's an inevitability and an undeniability to whatever the fuck it is that you have.
It's especially hard when the people around us are not understanding what we want, how we're going to get it. They don't see the path. And so when we do have these dark nights of the soul, I think one of the things that compounds the terror and the stress is when people try to alleviate the pain by minimizing the situation or reminding you that you can just go get a job, you can just go do this. It's okay if it's too hard. And that's why finding people like you and having people like you in my life who get it and understand that I need to go through. And you are able to hold space, not just for me, but obviously so many people that you witness and work with, hold space for us in the shit and allow us to be there because it doesn't cause you distress because you understand the nature of this process.
Yeah.
And having family or partners sometimes who don't want to see you in the distress and want to alleviate that through minimizing your aspirations.
Yeah.
It's a complex part of the process.
Course, like when you're fighting for something or a life that you want and it's really hard and you are in the shit, and I retrospectively I was very depressed for many years because I was living a life that I didn't want to live, and I was trying to make it as an author and it wasn't happening. And I was I would basically be able to make it to midday and then I would cry, and I would just like cry until I fell asleep, and that was for several years. And James, my partner, witnessed me through that. And I know he would do anything to make it end. And I know that he was always backing my art. And I'm so grateful for that. Like, he never once was like, why don't you just give up? But like, I can see why, just stop trying, Amie. Like, it's so hard. Like, can you just give up and just do what everyone else wants you to do? Do what the world is expecting you to do because you are in so much pain. But the thing is that I was actually on the easier path. Like, to fighting for a life that I wanted, fighting for a life for my books, my creativity was an easier path than me surrendering to the life that everybody else wanted me to live. I wasn't going to be able to do it, and it was going to destroy me. And so when people were like, why couldn't you just do the easy path? I'm like, you don't understand. That is my destruction. This is not the easy path. Like, what I really want to do is the road I absolutely must travel. And you need to support me through it.
And it's not to say that we don't get the backup jobs and we don't have the ways of supporting ourselves or finding income. I definitely had a lot of moments when I was post-social work career and not willing to go back into that. But before Long Game took off, where I was either working in a gym or I remember sweeping the floors of the cafe that I worked in just before COVID hit. And it was the place I'd gotten married, and sweeping the floors of this beautiful venue that I'd once been a customer at felt like a huge backstep. And I remember literally being there on a Sunday morning at like 7:30 in the morning, sweeping and having this thought of, I have a fucking double bachelor's. What the fuck am I doing? And still, even in that moment, being able to resource myself with the fact that no, 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 come back, center. I have this fucking goal of this fucking life and I don't care. I think this is the other thing, being able to realize that it's okay if it takes you 10 years. And this is the same thing with your body and your goals. And if you have fitness goals or body composition goals, if it doesn't work in the next 3 months, that's okay. The reason I stopped offering Long Game for 12 weeks, even when women came in with the best spiel around how they just wanted to be healthy and they just wanted to be fit, I would feel them hit around week 8 and it hadn't happened yet. And for people listening, not watching on YouTube, I'm doing the little air quotes, it hadn't happened yet. And you'd feel them almost like this little deflation of like, oh, again, it didn't work again. I'm like, babe, like this current body of mine has taken me 4 years postpartum. But that's also on the back of, another 30 years of mindset work and training and karate and deep, internal navigations and lots of sitting in silence and lots of acknowledging how I feel when I don't want to and feeling it and moving through it. And the idea that, it's okay if it takes 10 years. You can fucking work it out.
Yeah. And it's so worth it.
It's
Again,
so worth it.
It's so worth it. Like, it took me 10 years to really be able to make it work as an author. And I am indebted to her, indebted to the woman who spent a decade trying, and she gave me so much. And you know what? She had a really hard time. She also had a really fucking fun time, and she learned so much and she grew so much, and it was so worth it. And because I was process oriented, because I loved writing, like, I could do it. And I think that's something that I
Mhm.
look at when I hear like a writer or any kind of creative come to me and they say like, I really want this thing. I want to, win an Oscar, or I want to have written 15 books. I'm like, cool. Like, do you fucking love it? Because if you
Mm.
do, you'll just keep going. And the writer who wants to make it, who loves writing, I'm like, go for it, girl. Like, it doesn't matter because it
Mhm.
doesn't matter how long it's going to take. You're going to have a great time getting there. And obviously, again, there's always going to be ups and downs. But if you're enjoying the process, there's just like the longer you're in the game, the more likely you're going to win. And
Mhm.
so many people want to quit right before it gets easy. So many people want to quit right before they see the magic because they just can't tolerate how long it's taking. But this is our life, baby. This is it.
Yeah.
And this is part of living, is the process. And I would have done it for another 10 years,
Everything changed for me when I was in something, I can't remember if it was an in-person or an online course with Haley Carr, and she said, if it took you till you were 50, would you still do this? Would you still be doing this? And I remember thinking in that moment, fuck yeah, because I am so desperately, like, what was it? Unyieldingly driven for a life on my own
Unyielding. You are
terms.
unyielding. That was the word.
Yielding. That was the word. It is this or nothing. I
It
can't
is,
even.
yeah. And I think it's very neurodivergent, but I really love
Black
it
and
about us.
white.
Yeah, I love that. And if Haley had asked me that, would you do this if you knew it was only going to start happening at 50? I would have said again and again for my career as an author, yes, yes, yes. And if you asked me about my own physical health, I would have said yes. You know, I want this. And I think this is a great
Mm,
question. What is it you want? Like, are you willing
mm.
to fight for this?
Well, it's even that question, women so often tell me that they don't know. And I don't necessarily think they don't know. I think it's they haven't had time to think about it. They haven't had spaciousness or the white space in their life or in their calendar or in their
You've been
families to
told
think
what to
about it.
want. You've been told
Mhm.
what to want for decades.
Mm.
And you've been sold narratives as to how life's meant to look and how your body's meant to look and
Mhm.
what your career's meant to look like. Like, how the fuck are we meant to know what it is we want with so much noise?
Mhm.
It's so hard. And it requires an intentionality, I think, and a deliberateness that not a lot of us have given ourselves.
Well, I think it requires, like, I often talk about creativity being how we problem solve. But without the capacity for creativity, creativity needs space. And space means when you have nothing to do, you do nothing. You do not scroll. You do not sit and distract yourself. You do not find all of the other things to do that you could do instead of focusing on yourself. And that need to know what you want, I feel like, is the source of so much disquiet, like spiritual discomfort or just that identity level discomfort of like, who the fuck am I and what am I here to do? You
Mhm.
have to be able to sit in the silence and hear it without distraction.
I agree. And maybe that's why we've got such an epidemic of not knowing, because we do not be bored anymore. We do not be bored anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
we are not allowing any blank time. And we had a lot of blank time in our historically as humans, and we don't have it anymore. Um, I personally really, really struggle with silence, always have. And I'm having a few intentional practices at the moment that allow me to have no stimulation, allow me to be bored, because as an artist, like, we need it. And there's a lot of very cool neuroscience that looks at the work that our brains do when it's not stimulated. And we don't consciously understand it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
conscious processes. We're not aware of our brains doing it, but the a huge amount of work our brain does when we are not being stimulated, and how it eventuates in so many more ideas, in so much more understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But most of us are not allowing it. And most of us are
Mm-hmm.
working jobs that are asking a huge amount of ourselves. We are coming home and we are numbing because we are so fucking
Mm-hmm.
exhausted from our lives.
So
Um,
overwhelmed.
so overwhelmed. And all we want to do is we want to be babysit, just like our kids want to be babysat by the iPad. We want to be babysat by Reels. And I totally understand it is at a price.
That being said, like, we need to have the discomfort. We need to experience the discomfort. And pain is something we are going to experience. Pain is something we so intentionally try to avoid. And maybe something that I've learned through martial arts is that pain is a part of the process. It is how we grow. It's how our muscles get stronger. It is how we become tougher and more resilient. When you are neurodivergent, discomfort and pain, or boredom and pain, can be quite interlinked or feel quite interlinked. But this is why everyone says we get our best ideas in the shower, right? It's the one place where you can't scroll, where your brain gets to just.
Yeah. I'm having intentional walks without any stimulation at the moment, and I'm have got a sauna place here. I've been saunaing every day. It's been so good, but no stimulation in the sauna. I just sit, and not a lot happens. It's not very interesting. Like, I'm not like, oh yeah, and then I could do this and then I could do that. I'm mostly just like, holy fuck, it's so hot. But just allowing myself
Presence.
that time. Yeah, it's just presence, just
Yeah.
being with the pain, being with myself, and like listening to the inane chatter as well. My partner has sleep problems. Jamesy has sleep problems, and he finds that if he doesn't allow for non-stimulated time where his brain can just be like, what about this? And what about that? And this? And, there's like, when your brain's just like on one, just like throwing up random stuff.
Yeah.
If he doesn't have like no stimulation walks where his brain can just throw up he will just spend all night and his brain will just start like talking to him. It's so important for ourselves to just let our brains be brains without a constant stimulation. And I'm saying that as someone who desperately wants to be stimulated at all times. It's really hard and really worth it.
When you are thinking about the work that you do, because we say all of this in the context of, women can, women should, and women need to move with intention to create the life that they want to create. I started that sentence before I had any idea where it was going.
And you know what? You took it somewhere beautiful. It was very Michael Scott of you.
Thank you. Michael Scott. When we're thinking about that in your context, which is with 500,000 people watching, does that influence your process? Has that changed how you show up? Are there things that you feel like you hold closer to your chest and are more private, or have you become even more like, I just want to show every single part of the process?
I think it's an ADHD thing. I think it's a neurodiverse thing. It just completely entirely depends on my mood.
500,000, one, whatever.
If I feel like recently I have not been sharing anything personal, but I don't think it's really about the number. I just think I haven't been that interested. And I think it's very hard to conceptualize of that many people. I think it's very disorienting and very unreal. I think also Instagram shows my work to about, a point percent of that. And so I'm just completely disconnected from that huge number. And again, just completely listening to that incredible neurodiverse part of me. What are you interested in, Amie? Just follow it. Do whatever it is that makes you feel curious, rather than do, what's comfortable for me because I feel like I have 500,000 eyes on me.
So the podcast is called Disgustingly Easy because, as I mentioned earlier, it's one of the main philosophies that underpins the long game. And I believe everything you want, everything you can make happen in your life is possible, but only when we start disgustingly easy. So the only criteria for disgustingly easy is that it needs to be something you can do right away. It's not something you need to get anything, do anything for. It's not something we train for. It's literally something you could stand up and take action on now. So for women listening who are wanting to experience either more creative freedom or cultivate a journaling practice or just spend more time designing their life in alignment with their neurodivergence, with their intention, the way they want to live. If they're currently feeling lost, overwhelmed, obligated to care for everyone but themselves, where would you say they could start? What would be a disgustingly easy first step?
I'm going to bookend this conversation with mothering. Where we started is where we can end, because I think this is the practice that changed my life, and it's the practice I love to share the most. And the disgustingly easy thing would be for you to open up your notes app, like put an alarm on, if it's before bed or if it's just when you wake up. And I need you to write 2 sentences that are nauseatingly compassionate towards who you are and what it is you are navigating. And a lot of you will find this, like, it's 2 sentences, just write it. I don't give a flying fuck if it feels weird, and it will feel weird for some of you, but it's 2 sentences and you can absolutely do that. And I want you to ask yourself, what do I absolutely wish someone would tell me right now? And then I want you to tell them to yourself. It can be permission, like, I give you permission to just not try today. It can be just a gentleness, like, you are doing so well, you don't need to push so hard. It can be, I love you and you are incredible and you are on the path and you are made for this. Like, use language that you desperately need to hear, and 2 sentences in your notes app every day. just give yourself a voice that is taking care of you, because we are fucking hell, like, this life is crazy. We deserve so much care.
I feel like I could listen to a whole hour of being mothered by you.
I should
Just
just
one after the other. You're doing so well.
Bear,
You are so taken care of.
you are doing so well, and I am
Oh,
so
stop.
proud of you, and I mean that with my whole heart, and I am
You're gonna make
truly
me
in awe
cry.
of you. And you truly, like, you are so on the path, and it is a fucking privilege to witness you.
Before we wrap up, I do want to start by saying a big thank you, Amie. Thank you for even for being my friend. Like, you are absolutely incredible, incredible person to have in my life. And the way you have given me permission to do this life, I feel like the trail has been blazed and I have been following haphazardly in your footsteps for the last couple of years. So I'm so grateful. When everything about this life wants to convince us how unsafe it is to be who we are, to follow the path that we want to follow, to tell us not to try. And so I'm just so grateful for our friendship.
Me too.
And your presence and your permission that you
Me
give to
too.
me and to so many people. And it's to take our inner world seriously, I think,
Thank
is the
you.
biggest,
I
most
love
beautiful
you.
thing. I love you. And to those listening along, thank you for being here. In these first few weeks of the Long Game podcast, we have had such an incredible response from people listening in, reflecting, and sharing their takeaways. Holy shit. It just means everything to me. And I do want to flag, I tried to start a podcast, I think it was in 2019. It was when I first left for Canada, and I did 2 episodes and then convinced myself that it was a terrible idea and no one wanted to listen to anything I want to say. So here's to trying again, here's to failing, here's to falling down and getting back up again, and just trying because you want to try and because you feel like you have something to say. And when you come from that place, who gives a fuck if anyone listens? I have so much fun doing this. But again, thank you for listening, for giving this your time, your attention, and your trust. If this episode stirred something in you, if it gave language perhaps to something you've never felt like you could name, if there's a line or something that's going to stay with you, that really matters. And take it with you, from us to you. It is our gift. You can find more of this work and more of these conversations over on my Instagram, which is @CameronCoach_AU. And of course, you can find Amie and everything she has to offer at Inspired to Write. All of her details will be linked in the show notes, and her work is so fucking cool. She is so fucking cool. Long Gamers, if you head to the resource folder in your Long Game app, Amie has very generously gifted us her journaling companion, which, as I said, when she first released in 2019, completely changed my life. And it is free for you to download today. And finally, if this conversation sparked an aha moment that you didn't know you needed, I'd love for you to share it. Tag us in your Instagram stories. Let people see what landed. Help this conversation travel further than just your headphones. Because if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you can leave a comment, you can rate the show. All of it helps to get Disgustingly Easy message out there to more women who need it, because this work only grows when we let it be seen, when we share what moves us, what lights us up, when we bring other women into the conversation. So thank you for being here. And remember, when nothing is certain, anything is possible. You've got this, and we've got